You half of New York. I do want to know what your thoughts are on body count.
Body count? What does that mean?
It's how many people you've slept with.
Oh, how do I feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's Sophia Franklin. You are listening to Sophia with an F, and the F is for phenomenal.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sophia with an F. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We are recording from WTF Media Studios in New York, and I am joined by Meredith Marks. Thank you so much for being here. You are stunning, gorgeous. Your outfit is insane.
Thank you. Well, I have to support my dear friend Frederick Anderson, the designer, who I love and is unbelievably talented.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy to be here, and you look gorgeous too.
Thank you. Meredith and I were just talking about vaginas, specifically my vagina, because for whatever reason, in the past month, there's been at least 3 vagina situations. And what I mean by that is I'm unintentionally, by the way, flashing my vagina.
Oh,
to
no,
people.
we think it's very intentional.
I see.
She's a flasher.
I get a kick out of it, right? What are those people you can get arrested for it? Like you expose
A
yourself?
voyeur.
No,
not
like
a
when you
voyeur,
do it.
a exhibitionist.
An exhibitionist, right? I get off on it. That's like my little dirty secret. Meredith, thank you so much for being here. I have been watching the show since the inception, and I just love 2 gals from Utah here in New York. You're not originally from Utah, though.
No, I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay.
And we have lived in a lot of different places, and we still live in a lot of places. And we're very mobile.
Uh-huh. Like my vagina.
Yes.
Very mobile.
Yes.
Always on the go. Never at one spot at once. Your origin story I find so fascinating. More than any of the other housewives, not putting them down. But I just think your background, education-wise, you have a law degree and one of the most successful jewelry lines.
Thank you.
Which is
Thank
insane.
you. Yeah, I do. I have a law degree. I also have a business degree.
Okay.
And I love what I do. I mean, look, working with diamonds, it's like not a bad thing.
It's not.
No.
Never, ever. Except I think I would get in trouble. I wouldn't sell anything. I would just take it home and be wearing it.
Well, that is the problem part of it.
But you graduated from Northwestern.
I did for graduate school, for law school and business school, yes.
Okay. Did you ever really pursue the law path?
Not really. I, had a very short moment where I practiced, but it was very short-lived. And I use, my legal background in business every day. I'm very happy that I went to law school, and it, trains you in a different way of thinking.
Of course.
I just never really wanted to practice.
So did you go to school just to kind of say you did it, or because your parents were like, you have to, or?
No, actually, when I first started, I was an undergrad, I was a junior, and I took a criminal justice class, and I was just fascinated. I've always been fascinated by the criminal mind, but I'm a very afraid person, in terms of safety, and I could never practice criminal law.
Okay.
So I went, and I thought I maybe would do that, and then as soon as I really thought about it, I thought, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And I finished, law school, which, the law in general is very interesting, and the whole way of thinking is amazing, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so that's why my first year while I was in the law school, I then applied to the business school to do the joint degree.
That's pretty badass. That's pretty incredible. And then how did you go from that to designing jewelry and selling it on Main Street in Park City?
So it's kind of crazy because it's very contrary to what you would think. But shortly after I finished school, I had opened actually a health club in Chicago, first Pilates and gyrotonics studio there. This is a long time ago.
You have a Pilates body.
Well, thank you. I'll take that.
An incredible body.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
And I was walking from I had a meeting at school after I dropped my oldest son off in kindergarten. It's 9 a.m. on the 1400 block of Dearborn Street, which like nobody would think twice. You know, you think you're safe. And a guy came running up from behind me and slammed me down on the ground and went to grab my handbag, which was hooked over my arm, and started dragging me across the street. Yes. The taxi driving down the street stopped. They started chasing him. Regardless, he went to prison, whatever. I was completely traumatized though. And I decided at that point that I wasn't really doing what I wanted to be doing in life, that like it wasn't what I wanted, and that I was going to pivot and make a change. And that is when shortly thereafter, Seth said to me, I have a business trip, you know, in India and Hong Kong. And I said, great, there's a lot of stones coming out of there. There's a lot of production coming out of there. I'm coming with you, and I'm starting a jewelry collection. And everyone thought I was insane, because this was in like 2005 when we were in a nasty recession, and everyone thought I was completely crazy. Why are you doing a luxury business in the height of the worst recession ever? And I was like, because now I can. There are no barriers to entry, because everybody needs business right now, and I don't have inventory. I don't have stock. I'm not, I'm going in clean. So I did. So
when did you marry Seth?
We got married in 1997.
So you guys have been together for...
Or 96. Did I get it wrong?
I mean, it doesn't... I mean, whatever.
96.
97. people always ask me, like, my anniversary. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not great with numbers. I have to say, like, even when someone's like, how old is your mother? I'm like, well, she was born in 1947. I have to do the math.
When you said we got married in 1997, I was like, okay, 2023, and then there's 3 numbers left after 97.
Yes. I mean, I'm good with the math part of it. I'm not good with the years, the time part of it.
You know what? We can't be hot and smart. Well, I'm totally joking.
I mean, God forbid.
But if you had to pick one, like, I want to be hot. You know what I'm saying?
I want both. Sorry.
Okay, Meredith, you left me out, like, hanging to dry. No, you can be hot and smart, but you don't have to be good at everything.
Correct.
And you can hire mathematicians.
Correct.
To figure out your anniversary. That's what you need to do.
But it's less about the math. It's more about the time. Like, I feel like time goes by and I don't realize it, It's like, I feel like I'm still 24 and I'm not, obviously.
I mean, you look extremely young, and I feel like you act young. I was about to ask how old you are, and I feel like that's not. But I can.
You can. I'm
you're
like
a reality
easy about
star.
that. Yeah, you have to be open with. I'm 51.
Okay, you're the same age as my mom.
Oh, well, there you go. See, I could be the mom.
You could be the mom, and my mom had me when she was 21, and then had my brother 11 years later. So she's just...
wow, that's a big gap.
Yeah, so she's just now having fun.
Yeah.
And acts 25, and I love it. She's my best friend in the whole world.
Okay, I need to meet Mom.
Hello, you guys are both in Utah.
Yes.
Done deal. She lives right next to Lisa Barlow.
No way. In Draper.
Yes.
That's so fun. Like, literally next door? No.
Same neighborhood.
Oh, in the same, like, community. Oh, that's so funny.
And they both go to Treehouse, which is the gym.
That is so funny.
Right?
So are they friends?
I don't know if they're friends. They've spoken before. I think, like, maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
One time was a very long conversation. I don't remember. Oh, I think my mom pulled up her 23andMe to show Lisa her Ashkenazi Jew side of the family.
I love it.
Lisa ate it up, and then they were showing each other their 23andMe.
Oh, that's so funny.
Right?
That is so funny.
Very funny. I've seen her at the gym maybe once or twice just when I go home for the holidays, but I would be pissed if someone came up to me at the gym.
Wait, so is your mom, like, really Jewish or just genetically Jewish? Like practicing?
Ethnically.
Ethnically, yeah.
Yeah. We don't. My grandma converted to Mormonism, which is unheard of, aside from Lisa Barlow.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that was interesting.
Although Lisa, I'm not sure, and I could be wrong.
Mhm.
This is a question we have to ask because I can't recollect. She grew up in upstate New York, where
Mhm.
the mission, the whole Mormon movement started,
Right.
and the missionaries knocked on her door. This is my understanding, and she told me this a very long time ago. So if I'm getting the facts wrong,
Once
Lisa,
again-
I'm sorry.
Once again, this is not factual.
Exactly. But no, they came knocking on her door, and I think her mother was like, "This is what I was looking for," or something to that effect, and converted. And I'm not sure. And then Lisa did, and I'm not sure if her father did or did not.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Got
and
it.
the mother, I don't think was Jewish, but I could be wrong on all this.
I heard you loud and clear.
Why do I tell the wrong story for somebody else? That's for sure.
We will absolutely. Okay, see, did my vagina just come out?
Oh.
Guys, I just bent over. Actually, it was my butt, which is fine. that I'm willing to show off. That one I'm ready to go. I wasn't even okay. We started talking about Lisa Barlow. I'm very interested in you. So you married Seth in 97. Did he help you launch the jewelry line?
I mean, yes and no. Like, he helped me in the sense that he was supportive of me and I crashed his business trips to do my R&D, but I really did it on my own. You know?
Right.
It was my baby, and Seth. And I mean, obviously, we just launched our podcast, which maybe you'll come on our podcast next.
Are you doing it in Utah?
We're doing it kind of everywhere, wherever we are.
Mhm.
So, because
That's what you do.
not in one place for all that long.
No.
And that way, like, if we're in New York, we can
100%.
have you on in person live.
I would love. I need to be the first guest. You can't have any other housewife, just me.
I love it. Yeah.
So, what made the jewelry line so successful during a time where the economy was trash?
I started with direct to consumer when people weren't doing that. It was not real common. And it was really just out of necessity, because at the time stores were not writing orders. Like, that was just not happening. And so I started by just doing these like events where I'd host a cocktail, host a luncheon, host a whatever, and people come and they would shop. I kind of just took it slowly from there. And at the time, gold prices were high. We're in the height of a massive recession. And I have a lot of my early designs that I still make and sell, used a lot of negative space to keep the cost of the gold down,
Smart.
but still have a sizable piece, because everyone wanted big stuff and whatever. So that was like the beginning. And then, as things got better, I started growing and building and doing more business with stores, and, still always direct to consumer. And then online started becoming much more of a thing. I mean, when I started, like, you didn't sell jewelry online, not fine jewelry. No.
It's so crazy.
No. You would not, like, no one would even put a price on a website back then. Not for jewelry, for other things, yes. But, like, I feel like fine jewelry was kind of the last category to really go online.
Totally.
Totally.
And I think it's like, I would say it's not the only, but one of the only products right now that have brick and mortar successful operations.
Yes. Because, you have things that are of high value that take up very little space. So it works for that model. Whereas, things that are big, it's just, you're paying more rent.
Mm-hmm.
But, and people still want to see it and touch it and feel it. And I feel like it's much harder to sell online to people who have never seen your collection. And if they've seen it and they have a vibe for what you make, then they're more comfortable,
Mm-hmm. So you have this extremely successful jewelry line. You still do. Why reality television?
That it came about so bizarre. I mean, I got a text message from my dear friend who owns my favorite restaurant in Park City.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a group message to me and to Lisa, 'cause she knows Lisa as well. And she said, my husband's friend from college is a producer and they want to do a reality show in Utah. Will you talk to them? And I was like, okay, sure. And I didn't know I was being cast. Like, I thought because I had a store on Main Street, they wanted to kind of just chat and get some ideas or whatever. So I was like, okay. And then they're like, well, can you do a Skype? And I was like, oh, well, this doesn't sound like you're just picking my brain. Why would we get on a Skype? And that's when I realized they were, casting me. And I did not know it was Housewives. We did not find that out until about maybe 6 weeks before we started filming season 1.
So you just knew that there was a show that was going to be filmed.
About career-oriented women in Utah. So, but they maybe, they hinted at it a little before, they're like, well, what if it's Housewives or whatever, so we weren't shocked, but we did not know that. And I was very nervous. Like, I was really nervous about it because I'm not a big TV watcher and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into.
Okay. So now you absolutely know.
Yes.
And and so when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this, what's the harm, right? I'm assuming that was kind of your train of thought.
Well, yes, because when I found out it was Housewives, I was like, oh, I have the best idea ever. I'm going to watch one episode from every franchise because I hear they're all totally different. So I can get a vibe because we don't know what ours is going to be, right? So that's what I did, and I'm like, oh, this is not such a big deal. There's nothing so bad, because you see no story arc. You just see that moment where maybe there's an argument or whatever, you know? And I was like, oh, this is not a big deal. I had no idea what I was getting into. Zero clue.
So how do you feel about it now? On the 4th season?
Like everything else in life, you have positives and negatives. There's always going to be a love-hate. There are going to be moments that are difficult. There are going to be moments that are infuriating, and there are going to be moments that are spectacular. And it's a matter of how you choose to embrace it. And I choose to try to focus on the positive and not focus on the negative. And last night's episode was hard for me to watch for reasons that had nothing to do with anything the audience would ever. Well, I guess you kind of do see it at the tail end that there's obviously something deeper going on.
With Angie?
Well, no, me internally.
Internally?
Yeah.
Got it.
And I had stuff going on that was very upsetting. I have no idea if we'll flush that out or not. I don't know. Obviously I don't know what gets shown in the future, but it was hard for me to watch because it took me back to that time and that place. And it was just I had a lot on my mind that was very distressing, and I felt kind of mistreated, and it was rough. But on the flip side, there are all these other positives that come out. You get to really have an introspective look at the way you communicate, at the way you handle situations, at the way you just deal with life in general, and hopefully learn and improve and do better.
Right.
And you get to, talk about the causes you care about that are important to you and try to, educate on those and hopefully maybe even raise money or whatever it is, your objective is. I mean, for me, it's always awareness and raising money for anything that's charitable. And you get to talk about your businesses and, showcase that. And there's a lot of fun activities, things like that. But there are things that are unpleasant,
100%. I think anytime you are going to enter the public space and share your life in such a public way, there's no way that that's going to not come with a significant amount of hardship. But there is so much good that comes out of it too.
Yes. And even once in a while, I'll be walking down the street and literally I will have someone who stops me and they said, you have helped me so much by sharing my journey or sharing my children's journey or whatever it may be. It could be anything under the sun, but you have helped me so much to realize that, other people have these problems, whatever. That to me is everything. That brings me so much happiness to know that you've touched somebody, to know that you've helped, that you've done something positive.
100%. I remember season 3, I felt touched by a lot of things that you said that season. You really went through it. I don't know where you are in your journey, but you seem incredible happy. And I think it helps people so much that we don't even realize, just being open, talking about it. You know?
Yes.
That's
And that's
half
what
the
you're known
issue.
for.
That is what I'm known for. That is. So, you know, and it comes at a price. I mean, it's a little bit scary, but I would say the overwhelming response, regardless of what it is that I'm sharing, is positive.
For the most part, there are moments, and we were a COVID baby, you know, we launched in the height of the pandemic, which definitely had a very different tone in the world in general. And so the way people engaged with us and received us was probably a bit unusual.
I had mine was like a similar story.
Yeah. And it can be hard. Like, I feel like people were hyper critical.
Yes.
So that was a little bit difficult. But
hyper involved.
Yes. Well, because they had nothing else to do.
Yes. Yes.
So that was a little bit tough. But the reality is, when you get into the groove and you learn to say, okay, I know I've done this much that's been great for people, and, you know, not everything I do is great. I'm not saying that, but, you know, I have done these positive things, and then you get met with criticism. You just don't care about it anymore. You know, you're like, who cares?
You reach a certain point where it's like, it does not, I mean, maybe like over time, it can sometimes weigh you down a tiny bit, but I've been through it to the point where it takes a lot. It would take something outrageous for me to really get offended or let it affect me.
Right. And the thing too is, like, you also realize it's the same people on the social media
Just different
stuff.
accounts.
Like, no,
The same
but like
type
the
of
same,
person,
like, you
yes.
know, 20 people.
Yes.
It's always the same people making the nasty comments, whether it's about you or somebody else or
Mhm.
whatever. It's the same, you know, like.
And
they're
they'll
bored.
turn on you in 2 seconds or love you in 2 seconds.
Right.
I totally understand that. You've been very open on the show, and I feel like your kids have maybe been the most involved, at least Brooks.
Yeah.
More than the other kids on the show.
Yeah.
Did you, and I'm bringing this up because Kris Jenner had a conversation with Kim Kardashian saying sometimes, I don't know if it was the right thing, like putting you guys on reality TV. This is very different because Brooks is an adult. But did you have like that conversation with him?
Yes, of course, but it's been a bit of an ongoing thing because Brooks, you know, he was in a Broadway play when he was very young. He's been in the modeling industry for a very long time. Well, he's back in it now. He had years of hiatus, but as a, you know, tween was still modeling. And so we've had a lot of conversations over the years about this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very, very hesitant to let him do any of it when he was little, like very hesitant. He begged for a long time.
Right.
So we did that. Over the years, many times we did it again coming onto the show. I talked with my other two children, Reed and Chloe, about it as well. Reed has never been on the show, so it's kind of been a non-issue.
Mm-hmm. Did he ask? Like, I don't.
You know what? He's in real estate, and he was at a big company up until very recently. So it would not make sense for him. It could do a lot of damage, as we saw for Justin Rose. You know, like there are potential negatives.
Absolutely.
That, you know, you got to be a little careful with. It was just never even on his radar, and never pushed or encouraged because he needs to do what's right for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Chloe, you know, has been on a little here and there as it's worked for her, and she's had her ups and downs with it. And when she's been uninterested, then no problem, you know, do what works for you. But yeah, you definitely have to have that conversation to make sure they know what they're getting into, because the reality is I didn't know what I was getting into. Right. And I could be like, I knew it was, you know, you're putting yourself in the public light, and that comes with a lot of potential problems.
Yeah.
But
a lot of potential upside for you and your kids.
Correct. It's like, you know, like everything else in life.
Yeah. And I mean, you really have no idea what to expect. Like, you know you're going to be on reality television, but you don't know how they're going to edit or what's going to, you know.
No. And it's not, you know, and at the end of the day, and everyone's like, oh, the edit, da, 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 and they want to all criticize it. But the reality of reality TV is it's snippets, it's moments, And if you saw the whole thing unfold, it wouldn't be so entertaining.
Yes.
Let's be honest.
Yes.
Like what makes it entertaining is there are gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves room for speculation. And that's why it works. And if they filled in all those gaps to tell every little part of what you want to put out there, that's
you
going to
would
be
lose
boring.
all viewership.
Yeah.
I mean, we are now in a society where if there's not a fight breaking out, or at least tensions rising for more than 5 minutes, if that's not happening, it's like, okay, like I gotta fast forward to the next thing. That's like how we're wired now.
It's interesting. I do think too, though, like, I think that has calmed a little bit. Like during the pandemic, I think everyone just wanted like all of it, you know?
Right.
Like
Fight
everyone was
to
so
the
frustrated, you know?
Yes.
And now that like life is a little more back to normal, I think that like the audience can get a little overwhelmed by the fighting sometimes.
That's very true as well.
Yeah.
That's very true.
You know, I guess if it's a deep fight. If it's a light fight, like over a bathtub, no one's getting that invested, and it's fun and it's funny, you know?
How is the bathtub doing?
I love my baths.
I've never been a bath gal.
Well, you might have to try it out.
I think I need to.
You do.
I'm going to try that out and underwear.
Oh, I don't know that the bath and the underwear really have anything to do with each other.
No, just that they're both going to be first for me, that I'm going to embark on.
I guess you can be clean before you put on your first pair of underwear. There you go.
Thank you. Bada boom, bada bang. So you haven't asked this 700,000 times. I'm going to ask again because I just want to hear from you. The rant that Lisa Barlow went on, which was bonkers. Why? Well, first of all, what did she say? You fucked half of New York was her ending line.
I don't know if that was the ending, but yeah, it was in there
It was
sure.
It was in there.
It was definitely in there. Amongst a million other things.
Garbage whore, bitch, whatever it was. Where do you think that came from?
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I had asked Lisa a multitude of times throughout that winter what was going on because I was sensing all this hostility, and she kept saying everything was fine, which obviously it was not. I don't know. She has made reference, you know, to it all coming from things that Jen said to her, you know.
Yeah.
Fast forward to like real time now. I have no idea. You know, Jen's not there to speak for herself, so I don't really take it too seriously because making those allegations of someone who can't answer to me is somewhat irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't really know.
How is your friendship now?
So you have to watch this season to see where we land.
Okay.
But clearly it's better, as you know.
It's better.
As we've seen already.
Yeah. But it's not, I mean, do you think it will ever be 100%?
You know, we can't go back to where we were. And I don't think we should go back to where we were. Like, life is about moving forward, not backwards. I don't know. You know, that's at the end of the day, at some level, that's going to be up to her because I have just kind of been very open, welcoming. I'm not doing anything that should be a problem. I have had nothing nasty to say about her. I have nothing, you know, but positive energy to send her way. So it's really up to her where she wants to take it.
Yeah. I have to commend you because you are so poised and you really like always have it pretty, you know, kept together for the most part.
Except last night.
Except last night.
You can leave.
But I mean, in comparison.
Correct.
You are very, I see where like the law and the legal and class and just class comes from. It like seeps in, but can you kind of poke fun at the Lisa rant now?
Oh, I mean.
Or are you still horrified? I mean, it's horrifying.
I mean, it's like, it's so absurd.
That's what thank you. I was going to ask.
So absurd.
I was going to ask, okay, she said you slept with half of New York. Have you slept with anyone in this room? And I was like, I had to feel it out and see if you would find it funny. Because it is so absurd.
Oh, it's so absurd. And the funny thing is I'm actually relatively reserved, to be totally honest.
But also, what's wrong with sleeping with people?
Nothing. If that's what you want to do and that's, what makes you happy, go for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not what makes me happy. And I shouldn't say that. Sleeping with my husband, yes. If I'm, in a relationship or whatever, yes, sleeping with half of New York would not work for me. Trust me.
That's a lot of people. And I don't think Lisa would be the first one to come out and say something.
I mean, it might come out with that might be 200 people a day, every day of my life since I was born or something like that. I mean, I'm not the mathematician here as we discussed, but.
That is so hilarious. And why New York? Why did she pick New York?
Because I don't know. Probably because I'm here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For the last, 15 years, I've been here 30 to 50% of the year.
Wow.
So
with Seth.
Sometimes with Seth, sometimes not. He's here now, but he's not always with me. I mean, we're together a lot now,
right.
But during the years that we were separated and struggling in our marriage and everything else, we were not together a lot. We tried
which I
not
think
to
is
be together
great,
a lot.
Which I think is so incredible. I went to a wedding the other day and they exchanged vows and they were talking about being high school sweethearts. And I was like, there's no way. They started dating at 16, now they're 20 or almost 30. And I ended up talking to the bride and I was like, how does that work? And she said, oh my God, we broke up 5 times within that time period, leading up to the marriage. But people people are not open about that.
Here's the thing. I think they're probably happy now because they took that time then. And
exactly.
It doesn't mean everything is not on a straight trajectory. We hit bumps in the road. We hit things that are not always so easy. We have moments where we're just not in sync. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's interesting because my daughter is still with her boyfriend from high school.
Mm-hmm.
And they now have graduated college and they're living in different cities. And they're trying to figure out how to navigate the situation right now. And I love him. I would love to see them together forever and whatever else. But in the back of my mind, I'm also if they don't have time apart and they've been together since high school, other than a very short time during their senior year, I don't know that it's that sustainable forever too,
totally.
And so I don't tell her what to do. That's up to her. I'm not dictating anything, but it worries me,
Of course. I think getting separated or taking a break or whatever is really frowned upon. And I think it's so great. And it's so funny because the couple that got married, they separated when they were studying abroad in different places.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the time to do it.
I don't know that there's a great time for it because it's when you want to be, when it's a situation like that where you kind of want to be together, but that it's not perfectly sustainable that way. It's hard, you know? Whereas when you've been married and you're not getting along and you want to be separated, it's a little easier.
I just feel every 7 years there needs to be a conversation. Do we want to be in this still or not?
Well, they say there's that what is it, the 7-year itch? Is that what they call it?
No, I'm not good at math.
But you can't count to 7.
I do know how to count to 7. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But yeah, the 7-year itch.
I think that's fair. I think there should be continuous reassessment, I mean, Seth and I are always now, not before, but in the second, we call it our second marriage, even though we didn't technically divorce and remarry. It is a second marriage to each other. And we're, always checking in that is this the path we really want to be in? Are we good with everything? We haven't been in marriage counseling for a while, but we just reached out to our therapist the other day because we were kind of on edge with each other. And you've got to nip it in the bud, or it just escalates. And I think it's good to be constantly checking in and seeing where you're at, because as soon as one person is feeling not good about the relationship, if you don't address it, it snowballs and it just gets worse and worse. And
totally.
Worse.
And a lot of people won't talk about it because that's like a no-no, right?
Correct.
To have issues in your marriage.
No, we're supposed to be perfect.
I know Lisa Barlow hates the idea of anyone separating for any reason. She gets very emotional, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But
sometimes separation's positive, you know, and everybody's different. And for Lisa, that might not be positive. I'm not saying it's a good thing for her to do. I don't know. It's not my marriage. I can't, you know, speak for anyone else. I can only speak for myself. But, you know, for us, meaning me and Seth, that was crucial.
Yep.
Crucial. Like we would never, I mean, never have stayed together had we not separated.
You guys seem happier.
Oh, we're so much
on the show. Now you guys are doing a podcast, hence the bringing in the marriage counselor, right?
Right, exactly.
Right?
That podcast has caused a lot of fights already.
I'm telling you, but the marriage counselor needs to be your first guest.
Right. Well, that would be.
I
don't know. That would be amazing.
That would be
I don't
incredible.
know if I'll do it. I'm gonna ask.
You should definitely
I'll ask. I don't know if I'll do it. He's so good though. Our marriage counselor is like perfect.
He is.
Yes. We went through so many of them and like
you have to.
So many of them, you know, and I'll never forget one time Seth and we sit down. He's like very upset about something and he's going on and on and on for the first 15 minutes or whatever. This is the first time we've met the therapist.
Oh, okay.
And he was just, you know, on fire and he was going on and on, very heavy stuff.
Okay.
And he comes up for air and the therapist looks up and says, "Do we have a credit card on file?" And Seth looked up and he goes, "Excuse me, but this is not the right fit. We're leaving." And he got up and walked out.
That is, I thought is there a credit card on file was some kind of tactic, right? To like uncover something.
I think they just wanted to make sure they were getting paid. I don't know. But it was
and
like.
Seth just
he was not having
fuck
it.
off.
Yeah.
As he should.
No, it was very, it was someone who probably needs a little training on that because when someone's like upset, that's not the time to ask about the credit card.
Yeah. And I don't have a background in that, but I think even I would know better than to ask that question 15 minutes in.
Right?
Like at the very least, and how does that make you feel? Right? Like that's
right.
the go-to.
Exactly.
And how does that make you feel?
No, we don't care how you feel. How are you paying?
That's crazy. I had a therapist who started telling me what to talk about on my podcast and giving me some feedback of stuff she didn't like.
Okay, that's weird.
That was a little bit crazy.
Like, that's really weird.
Because I understand if they want to listen or watch something, maybe to understand me a little bit better, what I do for work. But she was coming back with detailed notes. And
That's a little too invested.
A lot too invested. A lot. We need to find a balance between that and do we have a credit card on file?
Exactly. That's and that's who we ended up finding. He's wonderful. He's so good.
Mm-hmm. I love that. How long were you guys separated?
I mean, we were separated on and off for years, you know. Nobody knew. Our kids didn't even know. We were living in the same house for a good part of it, you know, in the same room, you know, for a good part of it. And then later, as the kids got to the point where they were out of the house, we did like a real separation in separate homes and everything else. But it went on for a long time.
What are your thoughts on living together when you're a couple? Gwyneth Paltrow is married. They live in 2 separate homes. The only times I've lived with a boyfriend, hated it. Wanted my space, could not deal. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a very individual thing. I think that would be difficult for me to live entirely separately.
Yeah.
Like separate bathrooms, I think are wonderful.
But Seth travels a lot.
Correct. He does. And less now than he did.
Mhm.
We're together a lot more now. I mean, we are together probably, I don't know, 80%, maybe even a little bit more of the
Right.
time. Used to be the opposite. We were probably together 20% of the time before.
Mhm.
I like having Seth next to me when we go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Could I live in a separate room and sleep in the same room? Yes, I could.
That, you know what? That is the dream.
Yeah.
We fall asleep together in the same bed. During the day, I have my own space.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And everyone's different on that, you know? Like, I know people who fully have separate bedrooms. I know people who are in very tight quarters. You know, I think whatever works for you is great, you know?
Yeah. The men I've dated don't like it that much. That I'm like, I don't want to fully commit to us living together.
Well, then that's not the right fit.
Right? Bye.
Yeah.
Also, we're in New
Not the right
York.
fit.
My apartment, tiny.
Right. It's tight quarters.
It's
like,
tight
that's hard.
quarters for sure. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, Meredith, just rapid fire questions.
Take a sip of
Before though,
that.
I need to jump back to this half of New York thing, but not really. I do want to know what your thoughts are on body count.
Body count? What do you mean? Like dead bodies? What does that mean?
So body count is, you know what? I apologize. I should have came in with a better way to talk about it. It's how many people you've slept with. People will refer to it as their body count, which sounds
I've never heard
like a
this,
video
'cause I'm
game.
a little older.
It sounds like a video game and not cute, really, but that's what it means.
Oh, how do I feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
I think people should do whatever makes them happy. Like,
Okay.
that's the one thing that what anyone does in their sex life, in their bedroom, whatever, as long as they're not hurting somebody else, I couldn't care less. You
Yeah.
know, like that doesn't define anybody. That's like your own thing and good for you and do what you want.
Try different things out in the bedroom. There's no kink shaming
No,
unless you're hurting someone.
exactly.
I totally agree with that. What's your relationship like with Angie?
Well, as you could see from last night, it was not super positive.
Can I tell you something crazy? I'm pretty sure my ex-boyfriend used to hook up with her.
No way.
Yes, way.
That's too funny.
Which is kind of crazy because I'm 31.
How old is Angie? I don't even know how old she is. I
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
very well. That's the crazy part.
Oh.
Like, everyone's like, why isn't she invited? Because I barely knew her. Like,
Okay.
I barely know you. I've been around you maybe half a dozen times in a group setting. We've never done anything individually.
Mhm.
I've never gone out to dinner with you or you and your husband. Like,
But you've heard stuff about her husband. Well, you kind of alluded to it,
yes.
but you can't say what it is.
I never repeated what I heard. Never.
Okay. Okay, law degree.
Yeah.
Okay, classy lady. I
Did
love
not.
it.
I shouldn't have alluded to it, but you know what? You poke the bear long enough and hard enough. I'm human.
I mean, alluding to something is very different than saying something.
Correct.
Hence Lisa's rant.
Correct.
That was a lot of alluding. That was just bonkers, crazy.
It was a little out there, but
It was.
we're all human.
Forgive, don't forget.
Right.
Who do you think has the best style on the show? Aside from you, of course.
You knew I would say me.
I knew you would. That's why I didn't even let you answer that. I had to clarify with that.
There is no question mark under the sun that Mary Cosby has the best closet on our show. Like, it's not even up for debate.
Absolutely.
The closet's taken over the house.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I could only dream. Could only dream.
It's insane.
Yeah. I really like Lisa's style. Does she have a stylist?
I believe so. I think she's tagged her a few times.
Do you?
In Instagram. Some seasons, yes. Some seasons, no.
But not for every scene.
No,
obviously.
no. You know, I just started working with someone very recently. The last 2 seasons, no. Season 2, yes. So I kind of ebb and flow with it. And because I have to feel like they're really getting me. Right?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's very personal.
Yeah. You want to wear things that you feel like resonate with who you are. And if they're not getting you, then it's not working.
Completely.
So I've been a little controlling over that, but I need the help is the bottom line. It's a lot of clothing, you know, and it's a lot of looks to put together. And
it is so much work. Like it really is so much work.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy to say, but it genuinely is.
It's a lot.
I can just imagine you, the stylist comes, like shows you 5 different outfits and you're like, love it, but what about something like this? And you just pull out your outfit and it has nothing to do with anything she picked for you.
That has happened.
That has happened.
I mean, of course, because sometimes they're getting it, sometimes they're not, you know?
Which is good. Because I have been in situations like even shooting for a big magazine where I didn't want to speak up. And then I'm like, what in the potato sack fuckery did you wear?
Well, see, that's what's interesting. Like if you're shooting for a magazine, you don't feel like you really have that much of a voice in the wardrobe because you feel like you're supposed to be doing what they do.
Right.
You still have to be happy with it at the end of the day. It's your face going out into the public, you know?
It's like getting my nails done. Like I would rather go cry in my car.
I hate.
Than bring it up.
I hate going to get a manicure.
Right.
Hate it.
But do you speak up if they mess up?
It depends on how bad it is.
Okay.
It has to be pretty bad for me to bother
crazy
with it. Because I can't, the reality is I don't have the patience to sit there for them to fix it.
Yeah.
Like it's a miracle if I make it through the manicure.
Right. Our lives are difficult, Meredith. They just are. Okay, my last question. How was Mary allowed back on the show? First reunion, she falls asleep. Second reunion.
I forgot about that. That was excellent.
That was, I mean, legendary. Second reunion just doesn't show. How was she allowed? And then there were, you know, some racial things that were said. And she got in a lot of hot water.
She did.
But they brought her back.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of Mary, I think that the no show at reunion, let's start there. My understanding was like that it was, you're not coming back next season. It did not necessarily mean forever. So that's a wash there. Like the falling asleep, I think, was highly entertaining. So no one's mad about that.
Incredible. She is incredible talent. She really, truly is.
You know, and the racial things, Mary, I think, did not intend for those things to come across the way that they were said. And I think that there's a difference between comments made out of hatred and out of just not being aware of the meaning behind the things you're saying.
Yes.
I'm not saying either are right, but there is a very big difference between the two. And Mary is not filled with hate. That much I can promise you. She is not.
Yeah. Has she apologized? She has.
Yeah, she apologized on the spot, as far as I know.
Yes. Now I remember. Does Andy have favorites?
That I don't know. We can call him and ask him. I'm sure he does. He's a human being.
Right. Right. Is where you guys sit on the couch, does that have anything to do with who he likes?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know this for fact, but my interpretation is usually the two people on his sides are the ones who are kind of like in the most hot water.
In the most beef.
Yeah.
You are just, if I were to ever join the Real Housewives franchise, I would get my law degree first. I just feel like
that.
I mean, I probably wouldn't if we're being totally real with each other, but you must, I've seen it in reunions, kill it, keep your composure. Do you think it has something to do with that?
I think that my ability to reason has a lot to do with it and to, if I'm not too upset and heated, to be able to very clearly state what I think and why.
Yeah.
Definitely does. Composure, I don't know if that has much to do with it. I mean, that's like, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. It takes a lot of restraint when you know that like someone's just looking to get a rise out of you, which they do with me all the time because I don't lose it that often, you know?
You don't engage.
No.
You disengage.
I disengage. But sometimes I debate just like pretending to lose it to shut them up.
Just for fun.
I'm like, I just throw a little fit to quiet them down.
That's a flex. I absolutely love that. Okay, Meredith, this has been incredible. But by the way, Meredith and I are one vodka water seltzer deep. We're about to multiply that by 10. And I think I understand that math. But Meredith, you showed up with Caviar.
I did.
Which has never, ever, ever, ever happened in my 5 years of recording. Has someone brought Caviar?
With Meredith Marks Caviar and some potato chips.
I absolutely
because
love
I can't
that.
transport full accoutrements for you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But these work.
I can't wait to try it. And I'm getting Meredith Marks for every party I host.
Yay.
Amazing. What can't she do? Caviar, law, reality television, and being stunningly gorgeous. And a great mom.
Oh, thank you. I'll take all of that. I'll take it all.
Of course. So Meredith, where can everybody find you?
So on Instagram at Meredith Marks. On Twitter, which I'm back on. I did disengage for a while, but I'm back on it. Meredith Marks 0. I'm on Threads now too. It just doesn't stop these days. MeredithMarks.com, MeredithMarksCaviar.com. Our podcast, Hanging by a Thread with Seth and Meredith Marks.
And you guys will hear me on it very soon if they'll have me.
We will have you. We would love it. Let's do it next week.
Let's do it. Done deal. Sloots, I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.